Now let's talk about how we're actually going to go about writing this program. I always like to show you these string diagrams to kind of give you an idea of what the program will work. So it takes some input and creates some output. That's the basic idea of computing in general, is that our program transforms some input to some output. So if, for instance, we were to give it the text from the command line, Ronald Weasley, it's going to shout Ronald Weasley. If we say Ronald Weasley and the output file -o is ron.txt, then the output from our program will be the creation of a new file called ron.txt, which will have inside of it Ronald Weasley being shouted. Same with reading an input file and reading that input file and writing it to an output file. So that's how the basic idea and the combination of the inputs and outputs. So there's basically two places that we can read the file and two places that we can write the file, both the standard out and to an actual file. We've already seen, I showed you running the solution, what the short usage should look like. And when we use -h for the long usage, we should see this. All that's going to be handled for you automatically by argparse. We've seen how to run the program. So let's talk about how we would get started with this. Let me get you going so that hopefully you can write the solution on your own. If you don't want any more help, stop watching right now and just write the program on your own. If you want a little bit of a boost in the right direction, then stick with me here. So here I am. I'm going to use this editor here to write my program. I'm in here in the Howler program, and I want to say new py. Actually, let me go into my directory for the Howler directory. Here is where there's that test file. I can get rid of that, what I was just writing. I don't need the out.txt either. I don't need the Hagrid. That was something that was created too by playing around in the REPL. So what I want to do is I want to say new py, and I want to create the program called howler.py. And when I do that, now I have the new Howler program. Actually, let me go back. I want to, I'm going to remove that file, and I'm going to say new py, and I can't remember how this works. So I want to, even though I wrote it, I don't quite remember my flag name. So I'm going to run with -h. Yes, -p is the purpose. I'd like to run new py -p howler exercise, and I'm going to call it howler.py. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to have to change rock the Casbah again. So it's going to put the purpose there, and it's also going to repeat it right there for the description. So this is going to take some input, which I'm just going to call text. I don't know if it's going to be a file. I don't know if it's going to be just text on the terminal. So let's just call it input text for now. And it's going to optionally have an output file. And we're just going to, let's see, that's going to be called output file name. And that's a string. And by default, it's nothing. By default, it's going to print to standard out. So we could leave the default be the empty string. If you want, you could also call it none. I'm just going to, for the moment, I'm just going to leave it the empty string. So those are the two things that our program is going to take. So therefore, I'm going to get rid of the I and all of this. And this is what I have so far. So I've got two arguments, a text argument and an output argument. I'm not going to need any of this, so I'm going to get rid of it. And I'm going to print args.text. That's always a good place to start. Let's just print something that we got, and let's see what we have. And I'm going to say howler, and I'm going to say foo. And it's going to print foo. And then I'm going to say howler inputs fox.txt, and it's going to print input fox.txt. And the reason is because we didn't open that file and read it. So let me show you how we could do that in our program, and I'm going to show you how to do it inside of here. And there's a reason why I like to handle it inside the getArgs function. To me, this is part of validating fixing up the input arguments. This is where I want to handle everything having to do with processing the command line. And then once I get into my main function, I just want to deal with the text. I want to have already figured out if that text comes from the input file or just directly from the command line arguments. So I'm going to show you here that I'm going to intercept the arguments. I'm going to call it args here. And then before I forget, I'm going to return args, because that's the thing that needs to come back. So at this point, I haven't really changed anything about the way the program works. What I want to do is I'm going to introduce if os.path.isFile args.txt, text. If that is a file, if the text that they've given us is a file, then I want to open that thing. I want to open args.text. And I want to read it. And then I want to strip off the space, any new line, any white space that's on the other side of it. And that's going to return a string, which I'm going to then use to override the existing value of args.text. So let that sink in for a minute. This is just how I like to handle these things. I do this type of operation all the time. Maybe you don't like this, and maybe you'd like to handle it in a different way, and that's fine. I just tend to like to handle things like this because this is, again, processing the input text from the user. Since that's coming in from the user and it's kind of an argument to the program, I like to handle that inside of getargs. If you want to handle this in the main, it's completely up to you. But what's cool is that here inside of my def main, I say args get args, and wherever the argument text comes from, it's been handled so that when I run this foo, and when I run it with input fox.txt, now it's been handled. And here, my code, I feel like it's pretty clean and pretty readable. It's already been handled somewhere else. So now we have the argument for where we're going, for how we're getting the data in. If you are not sure how to make this to be uppercase, I would recommend you maybe do help on the string class. And on here you can search, you can do the / and you can search for upper. And I would recommend you hit the N for next until you find a method that might perhaps convert a string to uppercase. But I'm not going to tell you what that is. I'm going to let you discover it for yourself. The other thing you're going to need to figure out is how to print to an output file. So you're going to need to detect if there's something in args.out. So you could perhaps use an if statement, and you're going to, if there is an output argument, an out argument, you're going to open that as a file. You're going to need to open it for writing text, and then you're going to need to put the uppercase version of args.text into that file. If there is no argument for that, then you're going to print it. I would like to also suggest that you look into in the sys module, there's something called stdout, syst standard out. That is a file handle that you can use for writing. So for instance, if I say print hello, and I say print hello file equals, well, first I'm going to have to import sys. And then if I say print hello file equals sys.standardout, those are the same. Notice I didn't have to open sys.standardout. It is just always there. It's a file handle that's always open and always available to us for printing. So hopefully that gives you enough to go with. You're going to need to be sure to, for instance, let's make our test so that we can run this and we'll see how we're doing. Make sure that you use your tests so the file exists, it does print a usage, and then standard out fails. So it's giving the program, it's running the program with foobar baz, and it says assert that that what I get back, the output from the program, is equal to uppercase foobar baz. And right now it's not. It's getting back foobar baz. And we can verify that by running our program. Let's copy that and say howler foobar baz. And it's printing it back in still lowercase. So figure out that first test. Just figure out how to make it print to standard out that. Then move on to the next test. When you get that one working, then move on to the next test. Their tests are written in a particular order to help you solve the program and to help guide you. So don't try to do everything at once. Try to write one line of code, then run your program, run your tests. If your program isn't working, use tools like Pylint. Make sure you're formatting your code with YAPF or with black. Here in my editor here, I can see that it's complaining about unused import sys. That's fine. So use all the tools available to you to try to write this, and good luck, and we'll talk about the solution next.